Okay, I'm going to talk to you today about diffusion, osmosis and active transport. Now all three of these are examples of transport, which is just how particles move from one place to another. So I'm going to start off with diffusion. Now nice and simply put, diffusion is the movement of particles from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. So let's say I had a can of deodorant and I sprayed it. I'd have lots and lots of deodorant particles right here. So at the moment I describe this area here near the deodorant can as being a high concentration, which means there's lots of these particles within this particular volume. Now over time these particles are going to move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. Now they don't all deliberately just move to the area of low concentration, they're all moving in random directions. Over time we'll see these becoming more spread out and moving to a low concentration. Now diffusion can happen in liquids and gases because the particles are free to move. In solids, because the particles are held in place, diffusion cannot occur. So only in liquids and gases. Now next up we have osmosis. Now osmosis has got a very, very particular definition that would be good to learn. It's the movement of water molecules from an area of high water concentration to an area of low water concentration across a partially permeable membrane. So what we're going to do is we're just going to break that down and so we understand what that means. Okay, so I'm just finishing this osmosis diagram here. Now, what we have here is we have two sides of a membrane. Now a membrane, this membrane allows certain things to pass through it and not other things. These little blue circles represent water molecules. Now we can see that these water molecules, they're small enough to fit through this membrane here. However, what we have on this side, these black shapes represent a sugar. So in this case, it could be sucrose, for example. Now, this sucrose could be dissolved within this solution. So this is like a sugary solution. Now, because the sucrose is dissolved within the solution, we can see we've actually got a higher concentration of water molecules on this side than this side. As a result, what's going to happen is there's going to be a net movement. That means an overall movement of water molecules from this area of high concentration of water molecules to this area of low concentration. So, this is a partially permeable membrane. Partially means only some things. Permeable means to go through. So it means only some things can go through, in this case water. Remember, the higher the concentration of sucrose, this could also be glucose, it could be any sugar, the higher the concentration of this sugar, the lower the concentration of the water on this side. So it's the movement of these water molecules from a high concentration to a low concentration through this partially permeable membrane. Okay, next up we have active transport. Now active transport kind of goes against the grain. So let's imagine that we've got a membrane right here. Now, let's say this could be happening in a plant root, okay? So let's say we've got certain nitrates already in our plant root, okay? So this is inside the plant root. This is the membrane separating the inside and the outside. So let's say here is the soil and here is inside our plant. Now, the problem is, this time we want to go from a low concentration of nitrates, let's say, to a high concentration. So this is the only one which, instead of going from a high to a low, goes from a low concentration to a high concentration. Now, as a result, this requires energy. As a result, this is why it is called active transport. Active transport because it requires energy to move this nitrate from a low concentration to a high concentration. So it's said to be against a concentration gradient. Now all that means is it's going from a low to a high. Now the only other thing we need to know about is in the membrane, in this membrane here, there is a particular protein. Now this is the bit that requires energy supplied to the protein to move this nitrate across from the outside into the inside from a low concentration. Look, there's only one of it, there's not many, really low concentration here, into here where there's a higher concentration. So let's have a quick recap and see where they apply in plants. So diffusion is the movement of gases or liquids from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. An example of diffusion in a plant could be carbon dioxide diffusing into a leaf, or oxygen diffusing out of a leaf. So it's the movement of gases or liquids from a high concentration to a low concentration. Remember osmosis, the movement of water molecules across a partially permeable membrane from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. Again, both these processes are said to be passive because they do not require any energy. Whereabouts might we find this in a plant? Well, the answer is in the plant's roots. So within the roots of the plant, this is where we have the water entering. So that is where we have the process of osmosis happening in plant roots. Now finally, whereabouts would we have this active transport taking place? Well, also in plant roots, but only it's to transport nitrates and minerals rather than water. So that is transport of diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. Thank you.